cuts are at the vanguard of private enterprise in Cuba, permitted by recent government reforms. Also cafes and guest houses. Much of this is funded by Americans, Cuban Americans, who send money to family here. And that U.S. role is set to increase. The change in U.S. rules means Americans are now permitted to export certain goods to private business people here. And Cuban Americans are allowed to send more money to their relatives. The idea is to strengthen the private sector so Cubans can become less dependent on the state. The first visit of a senior U.S. official attracted not only journalists, but a Cuban-American businessman, Hugo Cancion. He's already established a foothold in Havana.
This is my favorite space in the whole office.
This media operation is permitted under cultural exemptions of the embargo. Anticipating the U.S. changes, he's positioned himself for other business ventures. But, he says, changes are needed in Cuba, too.
I'm not allowed to stay and purchase a home or buy a car or permanently reside in Cuba. I have limitations as to the amount of time that I could stay in the country, which I think is totally absurd.
Cuba's relationship with the exile community in Miami is complicated, and there's still a core of anti-Castro hostility here. So businessmen are keeping their cards close to their chests, but there's a buzz of interest. Miami's crucial cruise industry is poised for the moment when the U.S. gives tourism the green light.
We don't have to wait for airports to be built, for hotels to be built, for other tourist infrastructures requirements needed to be built. We bring our own, quite frankly.
Brian Hall didn't wait for anything. He flew his plane to Havana shortly after the U.S. policy changes were announced. Now he's forging ahead with plans to launch a ferry to Cuba from the Florida Keys. A lot of interest from the travel companies? Local officials have eagerly embraced the project. They're calling their town marathon the gateway to Cuba for the growing number of approved U.S. travelers.
So when you go where that sailboat is, you'll do a left turn about 90 degrees and go straight south.
Brian's so confident the ferry will sail this year that he's already charting other Cuban business prospects.
The infrastructure that's built, they want American dollars there. They want to see American businesses. They actually want to see franchises.
Maybe, but change happens slowly in Cuba. The Americans have opened the door, but it's Cuba that will set the pace. Barbara Plett Usher, BBC News.